Okay, we are back for what may well be the final episode of Touchdown's inaugural season. May get around to a wrap-up show, I don't know, but this is the last one that we're doing for sure. So hope you enjoy it. We're going to talk a little bit about the AFC and NFC championship games. As always, I'm your host Joel Turpin here today with David Asselin.
How you doing?
Martin couldn't join us today, but we may well have a little surprise guest later on, a rabid Seattle Seahawks fan who's winged his way in from the hinterlands.
The official 12th man, I think.
Yeah, the official 12th man. We'll see how that goes. In the meantime, we'll just get it kicked off and start talking a little bit about the games. Let's start with a very exciting AFC Championship game. Take it away, Dave.
Yes. Being as most of you have known, all 12 of you, I am an avid Patriots fan, and boy, it was a tough game to watch last Sunday. But the better team won, I think. Brady just didn't look like he was on target. He just didn't look like himself.
Agreed.
It didn't look like he was playing 100%. Yes, he doesn't. The Patriots don't have the offensive weapons that the Broncos had, but that never seemed to stop Brady and the Patriots this year. But different scenario going into Denver playoff. Both teams are pumped up. I think probably Brady, to me, I don't know what you saw of the game, but I think it just didn't seem like he was on top of it. He was like a half a stroke or half a gear behind all day long.
To me, it never really looked like the Patriots were in the game, and I think that was mostly
towards the very end. But this is
I'm just saying all throughout the game, I never really felt like the Patriots were in the game.
They pressured Tom Brady
from early on. It looked like they were going to lose, and I think a lot of that had to do with how Brady looked, because he looked really bad. He overthrew and underthrew and
he
threw wide. And
a wide open Edelman there in the game.
Had he ever been making contact with receivers and looking like the Tom Brady that we know and either love or hate, then you would have always felt, okay, they might come back into this. It could be a game at any point in time. But it was kind of the opposite, because he looked so out of sorts, because he was throwing these lame ducks off to the side and whatnot. You never felt like they were in it. You felt like, okay, even if they lucked their way into a touchdown or something, Peyton's going to score again, and then how are they going to keep up? So, yeah, to me, it was a very one-sided game, not in the score necessarily, but just in the feel of the game.
Denver dominated offensively throughout the game, and I have to say the most valuable player or players of that game should probably go to the offensive line, because the Patriots have been a fairly decent, if not one of the best defenses in the AFC this year, unlike a typical recent Patriots team. And boy, there was no pressure. Manning had all day long to pass. Very hats off to the defense, to the offensive line of the Broncos, and they kept Manning protected, gave him enough time to play. And you give Manning an extra second, he's going to burn you every time. Another factor, speaking of Manning, was that when they lost Talib early in the game, and Talib was the one who was supposed to be covering probably Darian Thomas during this. And Darian Thomas had a banner day, and you notice the whole game momentum of the game shifted right after that injury. And it was just an accidental hit by Wes Welker. I mean, former Patriot wasn't out to do anything. He wasn't out there to be mean or create purpose injury or anything. It just happens in football. And if you lose like a Jamal Lewis did the other Jamal Charles, the other day, or that last week or so, then these things happen. You can't.
It makes a big difference.
It makes a big difference, and Peyton took advantage of it. And also hats off to the Broncos defense. A surprisingly good defense. They've sacked Brady a couple times, pressured him all day long. Although Brady ran a 7-yard touchdown on Sunday.
Was a nice play. That was a nice play.
Highlight film of the game. Yeah, the Patriots just weren't in it. They just seemed like they just weren't. Or they were just outplayed.
Well, they weren't able to really establish the ground game that had carried them in recent weeks. Blunt never got going, and really, for some reason, Belichick just completely went away from him after a couple of tries. I think he had 5 carries total. So, I mean, they weren't good, but it's kind of strange that he went away from him so quick.
That I didn't understand.
I'm
not Belichick. I don't make his money, but I'd have kept pushing it. Eventually, Eventually, when it broke out for one.
Well, especially given how poorly Brady was throwing the ball, it was odd that they didn't.
It was 63 degrees Fahrenheit, which is, I don't know what that is, 20 degrees or something Celsius in Denver on January, which is unheard of. It was like a spring day. The one I noticed it was still in the first half, and they were down 10-3, and Brady missed a wide open Edelman for a sure touchdown. Did you remember seeing this?
Yeah, yep.
Just before halftime.
Yeah, that
they could have win
killer.
in there with a 10-10 score. It might have put a different mentality into the going into halftime, but you could tell right away that after that pass, something was not right.
Yeah. Okay.
Poor Brady.
After that, we had what I thought was just an amazing, great game.
I think it's one of the best games of the year.
Yeah, it really was. Seattle in San Francisco in Seattle, excuse me,
Yes.
taking on the 12th man, losing by a couple of points. Just a heartbreaking loss for San Francisco fans. Huge moment for Seattle fans who, of course, didn't acquit themselves terribly well, but who wants to dwell on the negative aspects?
I think they played quite well. San Francisco, as good as they did, I mean, it's tough to win outside of Arizona. I think it's tough to win in Seattle, but don't tell the Cardinals that because they went 0-1.
True.
Latter part of the year. The defense was on fire. Sherman on Crabtree all day long. That big play at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Would have tied it up, sent it into overtime.
It was a game full of big plays, though. There were so many great catches. Receivers going up, tall receivers, guys that are already 6.5 feet, going up, stretching to 11 feet or whatever to catch balls at their fingertips or big runs by Lynch or by Kaepernick. Really, and it was offense, it was defense, it was special teams. It seemed like every aspect of this game for each team played well. That was what I loved about it. Both offenses played pretty well, given the circumstances. Both defenses played pretty well. Special teams, there were some big plays. There was a big run back by Seattle. It was such a good game.
Yeah,
I loved
it was a great
the touchdown catches. Seattle, San Francisco, their touchdown that put them up late in the game, and it looked like they were gonna, in the fourth quarter they were gonna take command. I mean,
Seattle threw this he couldn't have thrown it any better. This catch to starts with a K. Doesn't matter, but he couldn't have fit it in there any better. And yeah, it was probably. The score doesn't surprise me. It was a relatively low-scoring game. It was defense against defense, probably 1-2 in the NFC playing against each other.
Yep.
Fantastic game. I know our colleague who's not here today is still crying in his oatmeal over this loss, but hats off to the 49ers. They will be back, for sure. I did not want to see Seattle in it for obvious reasons. But yeah, that's the way it goes. I think it'll be an interesting Super Bowl for sure.
Yeah, I do too, and I think we're probably about ready to talk about it. We're going to skip right over all the random controversy because we can spend half a show talking about it.
Going back to the Patriots, one thing that I failed to mention.
Okay.
The Patriots have won a lot of games this year, and especially in these comebacks by their special teams. And they were shut down. The special teams were totally shut down by the Broncos. And the hats off to Del Rio. This is a defensive coordinator for the Broncos. He was this
Jaguars.
Yeah, but he was the coach. Your head coach was out for a couple of weeks.
He covered.
Yeah, he covered for your head coach.
For
not
Fox.
Your head coach for Fox. And first win for Del Rio in a number of tries against the Patriots offense. He finally figured out Belichick, and I think Belichick made some stupid calls.
It was not his best game. I don't think so either. There was the fourth down where he went for it early was
2.5 or something like this. This is
questionable. I get it given the time and the circumstances, but it was questionable, and the call itself wasn't all that great. And like I say, basically abandoning the running game, or at the very least, abandoning Blunt so early when he had been so effective in previous weeks. 4 or 5 carries is not a big enough sample size to say this guy can't run today.
They were like going into halfway through the first quarter, they looked like they're already in panic mode or something.
Yeah,
the Patriots
it did.
Trying to push the ball up too fast and not establish a running game. So
Excuse
My
me.
colleague is still ill.
Yeah, still working on that.
And another note on the Seattle game, because a lot of people were talking about this week, was the comments from Sherman. Yeah, they were a little heavy duty, but people forget Michael Jordan in the mid '80s.
Yeah.
He would talk. He would talk the talk, or Muhammad Ali. How he
Yeah.
would talk the talk. I mean,
One of my favorites, Reggie Miller, back in the day. He used to get in there to New York and show the joke sign.
yes.
It wasn't the classiest thing I've ever seen, but it also, at this point, I'm on Sherman's side because
Yeah, so am I. I mean,
I
I'm
saw
not putting-
way too many thinly veiled racist comments around it on Twitter and on comments on things afterwards. It's like, okay, you guys are just waiting for an excuse to bust out with the thug or monkey or whatever BS comments you're looking to make to whatever. Yeah, who else is acting like an idiot on the sidelines? Jim Harbaugh most of the game, and we don't see a lot of complaints
look at the coach
about
himself,
him.
yes.
Nobody's calling him a thug, So, yeah, it was dumb, and it shouldn't have carried over into the post game interview, and he apologized for it, but it's blown way out of proportion.
In Sherman's defense, I don't think it's any different than Michael Jordan in his younger days or Muhammad Ali in his younger days. If they win the Super Bowl, and that's a big if, we'll forget all about this Sherman talking.
Yeah, if he backs it up, that's a whole different thing. Agreed. Speaking of, it's time to talk about the big game.
Not the two teams that I wanted to see, and then I don't think that you did either.
Well, I would have rather not seen Denver. I guess I would have preferred San Francisco. I like them from back in the 80s and have some friends that I kind of support. But, Seattle's okay. I have no problem rooting for Seattle this week.
You're going to be rooting for Seattle?
Oh, hell yes.
Oh, that's right.
Come on, yeah, I would root against.
You'd pick the Jaguars over the Broncos.
The only tough call, Cowboys, Denver, that might be a Super Bowl that I would just not watch. Okay. But other than that...
You don't like the Cowboys either?
Cowboys they're the one NFC team that I can't stand. But mostly because of their obnoxious fan base in the 90s that sprung up.
Troy Aikman era.
Yeah.
I see this being a high-scoring Super Bowl, higher than most people predict. You got a Seattle defense, but I do believe Peyton Manning's been there. He's got the T-shirt, bought the T-shirt, outgrew the T-shirt, looking for a new T-shirt. I see that giving Peyton Manning time. I see the first half's going to be one of those iffies. It might be a 10-3, a 10-7. It's going to be low scoring, but I see give Peyton enough time, and he's going to burn him. Seattle, not taking anything away from the Seahawks, but this is the big show. This is a big show. And I would say 99% of the team has not even been beyond the playoffs. And we're talking the Super Bowl in New York. I just see Peyton this is Peyton's year. It has to be his year. I know as a Chiefs fan, this is, salt in the wound, and it's festering as I speak, but I would not bet against Peyton. The way they played, the way they set up and played against Belichick's Patriots, even though they were playing at home, they had a great game plan. They shut down the run game, forcing Tom to throw it. And their defense stood up. We're not really known for the defense this year, the Broncos. Well, they weren't.
No, they played a decent defensive game. I watched the Chiefs hang up 30-some-odd points on them twice, and they weren't really known for their offense. So I'm not buying into Denver's defensive renaissance necessarily. They do have some nice players. Pot Roast, I guess his nickname was there, coming out of the middle.
Huge.
Yeah. They got some okay players. They got some playmakers. Of course, Champ Bailey's not the guy he used to be, but everybody knows him, and it's nice for a player like that who's looked for his whole career to make the Super Bowl. That's nice enough. But yeah, I'm gonna go with the old adage: the defense wins championships. This is the fifth time that the number one offense has met the number one defense in the Super Bowl. 3 out of 4 times previously, the defense won, and the only time that went the other way was in 1990 when Joe Montana led the Niners to a 55-10 rout of the Denver Broncos. So yeah, one of my favorite Super Bowls. Great Super Bowl.
And also 2007 Patriots perfect season. phenomenal offense, but went against a very strong New York defense.
It happens.
Which is a wild card team. They went in 9-7.
Yeah, they weren't the number one defense that year, but it's the same basic adage. It happens more often than we like to admit. And the other thing that happens is the number one offense loses earlier in the playoffs to a good defense. Baltimore Ravens knock out teams every year that are supposedly better offenses, and I mean,
you're picking Seattle to win this.
I'm picking Seattle to win, and part of it, of course, is the fact that I hate Denver with fiery passion, but part of it is also just
Keeping
that
unbiased, yes.
I'd like to believe that unbiased, I would still pick Seattle. We'll see.
Well, that'll make Tom happy.
Yeah, I'm going with the defense. The Seattle offense isn't bad. Wilson is the weak point, obviously.
Yeah, I don't think he's
his best moments are unrehearsed things. When he scrambled for the touchdown
there were
throw.
Some calls last week. Call it favoritism or somebody twisting arms in Vegas, but there were 2 intentional grounding calls, and only one was called. Okay. This is when Harbaugh was throwing his fit there. I think Wilson lacks the experience, and I think, it's a Super Bowl, anything goes. But I think that it's not just Peyton, but I think the entire Broncos team will be playing for Peyton, and not just the Broncos themselves. And we'll see what happens.
I agree. I mean, they're not to be dismissed, and if they get out to an early lead, it's going to be tough.
Hard to come back. Yeah.
It's going to be tough to come back. Seattle relies on its ground game. It relies on its defense. It relies on its special teams. They need to keep the game close. Obviously, if it's a blowout, it's Denver winning in a blowout. Seattle's not going to come out and take the lead and hold it the whole game with some 40-point win or something. It's just not going to happen. But
I'd pick it to be 35-24 win for the Broncos. And the 24 points coming for Seattle, that's a score late in the fourth quarter. But I think the Broncos win this by the fourth quarter.
If it's a blowout like that, obviously, it would be Denver ball. But I think Seattle's going to come out, and if they establish the tone early, and if they stick to their running game, stick to their game plan, I think they're gonna give the Broncos a hard time. The Broncos have done well when they've played. They've done at least okay when they've played against running backs who are more, swing it out and get your yardage on the side of the field type backs. But that's also in large measure because teams stop running against the Broncos because they get behind. And so they come out and throw, trying to keep up with them, trying to,
that's where they make mistakes.
Yeah, so if Seattle comes out, they pound the ball with Lynch. They use Wilson in the limited capacity that he should be used in, and not as a primary weapon, but as kind of a secondary weapon.
I think he's overrated.
He is, at this stage in his career, I think, somewhat overrated.
He can run a little bit. He's got Kaepernick and Cam Newton style football. He's dying over here. This will probably be our last show altogether.
Yeah, maybe.
But on another note, God, I just lost my thought.
Talking about Wilson, talking about the running game.
Yeah,
Seattle offense.
I'm totally on your side. I think Denver scores early and then forces Seattle to play Denver-style football. But once again, I think experience is going to show out here.
Okay, we'll see.
you've got you had Peyton against Tom last week and 2 experienced quarterbacks. And here's one fact to note we haven't discussed yet is they're playing a winter Super Bowl for the first time. This is actually being played in New York.
There's another bonus for the Seahawks and another negative for Peyton.
You think it's more...
Come on, he won last week. It was 60 degrees.
Yeah. But
he still doesn't win the cold games.
Yeah, but Denver's a little colder than Seattle, especially.
I'm just talking about Peyton. Just Peyton.
Okay. You don't think Peyton's doesn't play well when it's cold?
He never has.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we'll see. We'll see.
He wins games in domes.
What do you pick the score?
Well, to
Not
me,
if
no. I'm thinking. To me, 28 points wins this game. If either team gets to 28 points, then that's probably going to be it. Especially, if they need to hold Denver under that. Basically, Seattle needs to. There's no way they're scoring more than that. So a 24 seems quite reasonable for me. So if I've got Seattle winning it, I'm saying 24-20.
Well, that's low.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told you. I got Denver 35-24 into the game. And the last touchdown from Seattle.
Yeah, if Denver scores 35, then it's over. Yeah. So obviously for me, picking Seattle to win, I can't say it's 38-35 because I just don't believe Seattle's going to put up 38 points.
Yeah, it's not the Super Bowl we all wanted to see, or most people wanted to see. They were more looking for a Denver 49ers Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think Denver 49ers would have been the ratings smash.
Yeah. But we'll see. I'm good for the Seahawks to make it this far, but we'll know in 72 hours or something like this.
No, a week and 72 hours.
A week and 72 hours.
Yeah.
That's right. It's got the Pro Bowl this week.
Pro Bowl.
Okay, very nice.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us. We're going to cut it short here this week and may just come back in a few moments with a rabid Seattle fan. Let's see how that goes.
Mr. Tom Meyer.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.